Prime Minister's questions turned into a chaotic showdown as Keir Starmer, Labour's leader, faced a fierce attack over his new EU deal. What started as a chance to showcase leadership spiraled into a storm of accusations. MPs from all sides called the agreement a betrayal, surrender, and a disaster for Britain. The House of Commons erupted with shouts, jeers, and anger, as the Speaker struggled to keep control. Beneath the noise, one question loomed large: has Starmer sacrificed Britain's independence for short-term political wins? This wasn't just a debate, it was a political earthquake, shaking trust in Labour and raising doubts about Starmer's ability to lead. The session began like any other Wednesday, but the mood shifted fast. Starmer stood to defend his deal, calling it a historic step to rebuild trust with Europe and help British businesses. He promised it would cut red tape, boost trade, and bring stability. But before he could finish, the chamber turned hostile. Opposition MPs booed, accusing him of bowing to Brussels and breaking promises to voters who wanted freedom from EU control. When Labour negotiates, Britain loses, one MP shouted, sparking loud cheers. The attack wasn't just about trade, it was a charge that Starmer had sold out Britain's future. The criticism was relentless. MPs tore into the deal's details, focusing on three key areas: fishing, agriculture, and energy. On fishing, they claimed Starmer gave away Britain's rights, locking fishermen out of negotiations until 2038, a lifetime for coastal communities. The EU got what it wanted, and our fishermen got nothing, one MP roared. On agriculture, critics said the deal forces British farmers to follow EU rules without a say, while foreign competitors gain an edge. They accused Starmer of signing up to laws written in Paris and enforced in Brussels, leaving farmers burdened by taxes. On energy, the deal's alignment with the EU's emissions trading scheme was called a straitjacket, keeping household bills high and limiting Britain's flexibility. Each point hit like a hammer, painting Starmer as a leader who traded sovereignty for empty promises. The chamber was electric with fury. MPs shouted over each other, calling the deal a publicity stunt for Labour. "This isn't policy, it's a photo op," one yelled. Others compared Britain to the Faroe Islands, a tiny nation that negotiates fishing rights yearly, while Britain, a global power, gave theirs away. The accusations grew personal, with MPs claiming Starmer misled voters to win power. "He says what he needs to stay in charge," one shouted, striking at his integrity. The Speaker's calls for order were drowned out by jeers and desk pounding. This wasn't debate, it was chaos. Starmer fought back, insisting the deal was good for Britain. He said it would save businesses £800 million a year in tariffs, open EU markets for steel and shellfish, and strengthen security ties. "This is the reality," he shouted, slamming the dispatch box as his MPs cheered. He accused opponents of playing politics, rejecting progress for cheap points. On fishing, he claimed no rights were lost, quotas and access remained the same, with new permanent shellfish markets. On agriculture, he argued the deal cut red tape, backed by major supermarkets like Tesco and Sainsbury's. On energy, he said it lowered costs and boosted trade. But his words struggled to cut through the noise, as opponents shook their heads, unconvinced. The sharpest blow came when an MP called the deal a stitch-up for Labour's headlines, not Britain's future. The words hung heavy, fueling distrust. Critics pointed to broken promises. Starmer vowed no return to the single market, no EU payments, and no loss of sovereignty. Yet MPs claimed the deal crossed all those lines. They demanded answers. How much will Britain pay? Who speaks for farmers now? Why hide the costs? The silence on these questions deepened suspicion. One MP accused Starmer of sneaking in a youth mobility scheme, rebranded as an experience scheme, to allow more EU workers into Britain without clear limits. "This is reckless," they shouted, warning of uncontrolled migration. Defence was another sore point. Critics said Britain was paying the EU for dialogue while getting no real influence. "We lead NATO, station troops abroad, and this is what we get," one MP fumed. They claimed Starmer hid the deal's costs to avoid scrutiny. The chamber roared with laughter and heckles, but beneath it was a growing unease. Was Starmer being honest? Once distrust takes hold in politics, it's hard to shake. The session felt like a trial, with Starmer's leadership and credibility on the line. Labour's response was fierce. Ministers accused opponents of hypocrisy, rejecting a deal Britain needed. Details matter in government, and in opposition, one snapped. They listed benefits, £800 million in tariff savings, new markets for farmers, and access to EU defence funds. Starmer mocked the opposition for opposing every trade deal, with India, the US, and now Europe, while offering no plan of their own. They used to be the party of trade, now they're the party of no, he declared, drawing cheers. But the opposition hit back, calling his numbers fairy tales, and accusing him of distracting from the deal's flaws. The Commons became a battleground, with each side wielding words like weapons. The chaos wasn't just theatre, it was history in the making. EU deals have always been explosive in British politics, but this felt bigger. It wasn't just about trade, it was about trust, sovereignty, and Britain's direction. Every MP seemed to know the stakes, and none backed down. The public, watching on TV and social media, saw a government under fire and a leader struggling to hold the line. Headlines screamed, betrayal, and capitulation, while radio shows buzzed with angry callers. Fishermen felt abandoned, farmers betrayed, and families feared higher bills. For a nation tired of Brexit fights, this deal felt like a repeat of old battles, with Labour, not the Conservatives, in the hot seat. Inside Labour, cracks are forming. Some MPs support Starmer, seeing the deal as a practical step to fix the economy, which grew just 0.1% in Q3 2025. Others are furious, believing he's gone too far. This isn't what we campaigned for, one whispered, hinting at rebellion. The optics are terrible. Starmer promised no EU concessions, yet the deal looks like a step back toward Brussels. His approval rating, already down to 22%, risks falling further. A few MPs even question if he's the right leader, with whispers of a challenge if the backlash grows. Labour's 403-seat majority, once a strength, now breeds factions, too many voices, too many ambitions. Outside Parliament, the public is restless. Social media is flooded with clips of the Commons clash, amplifying distrust. Fishermen in Grimsby and Cornwall feel sold out, with quotas locked until 2038. Farmers in Yorkshire and Kent worry about EU rules crushing their livelihoods. Families, facing energy bills up 10% since 2024, see no relief. The deal's promise of lower tariffs feels distant when groceries and rent keep rising. For many, this isn't stability, it's surrender. Brexit voters, especially in the Red Wall, feel betrayed, boosting Reform UK's poll numbers to 18%. The opposition is seizing the moment. Conservatives, led by Keir Starmer, call Starmer weak on Britain. They demand a Commons vote on the deal, knowing it could expose Labour's divisions. Reform UK's Nigel Farage is rallying supporters, framing the deal as proof Labour can't be trusted. His party's rise threatens Labour's working-class base, especially in Brexit-strong areas. Even the Liberal Democrats, usually pro-EU, criticise the deal's lack of transparency, demanding answers on costs and migration. Starmer's team insists the deal is a win. They cite endorsements from supermarkets and the CBI, claiming it saves £800 million and opens markets. But the fine print raises doubts. The deal commits Britain to EU emissions rules, potentially raising energy costs. It includes vague consultation on defence, with no clear influence. The youth scheme lacks defined caps, fueling fears of unchecked migration. Critics ask, who controls Britain's laws now? The silence on these questions feeds suspicion that Starmer is hiding the true cost. This clash could reshape British politics. If Labour splits, Starmer's leadership may not survive. A rebellion could force resignations or a no-confidence vote within the party. The Conservatives, though weakened, see a chance to regain ground by framing Labour as anti-Brexit. Reform UK is gaining fast, with Farage's direct style resonating where Starmer's feels scripted. The deal's fallout could shift the political map, with voters losing faith in both major parties. Globally, the deal weakens Britain's standing. Allies like the US, already distant after Trump's snub of Starmer, question Britain's resolve. The EU, while welcoming the deal, knows Britain is desperate for trade stability post-Brexit. NATO partners worry about Britain's influence if it's seen as Brussels' junior partner. The deal's promise of defence coordination sounds good, but critics fear it ties Britain's military to EU priorities, limiting independence. For voters, this is personal. Fishermen, farmers, and families feel ignored. The deal's benefits, lower tariffs, market access, are abstract when bills are soaring. Brexit was about control, but this agreement feels like a step back. Public trust is eroding, with 62% of voters in a YouGov poll saying Starmer mishandled EU talks. Social media amplifies the anger, with hashtags like #SelloutStarmer trending.